Okay, I call to order the meeting of Monday, May the 12th, 2025. To order, I ask all who have not signed in, please do so. Please turn off all cell phones and other electronic devices, and please conduct any private conversation in the hallway or outside. Emergency exits can be found to your right and to your left. Please note, this meeting is also live streamed via YouTube with text commenting available. At this time, if you please join the town board in a salute to the flag.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, first of all, we'll welcome back our town clerk. Also, all town facilities will be closed on Memorial Day on May the 26th. The next town board meeting will be on Tuesday night, May the 27th. Approval of meeting minutes. This would be the April 28th town board meeting.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
And the abstract of claims, number 9.
Manifest number 9 in the amount of $570,806.49 has been reviewed by your Victor Town Board with the following accounts charged: general townwide, general outside village, highway townwide, and S&S consolidated sewer.
Thank you. And up on the big screen, you can see expenditures that are in the range of or exceed $5,000. Payment number 1 is to Civic Plus for the new board agenda software. Payment 2, CP Ward, this is for Pump Station 11. Partial payment. Payment to Integrated Systems for IT equipment and the May hosting. Payment to Isaac Heating, new furnace for the Framac Courts building, Framark. Payment to Mengel Metzger Bar for our final town audit fee, and payment to Suit Coat for town road crack filling. The total of the above-mentioned expenditures is $523,916.10. Total town expenditures minus the previous mentioned expenditures equals $46,890.39. Board members, any questions on abstract number 9? Hearing none, entertain a motion to approve the payments hereof.
Second.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Privilege of the floor this evening. We have our school superintendent here with us.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Want to welcome Christine Griffin, our Assistant Superintendent for Business. Always bring the brains of the operation with you, so you make sure you know what you're talking about. And also, our board president is here, Mr. Tim DeLucia. Appreciate him being here and being present. Let's see, yes. So we're going to talk briefly just about the budget that is going to the voters on May 20th. I want to talk a little bit about the specifics of the budget, the goals behind it, and certainly the calendar review and the timetable. Our goals around our budget have not changed in the most recent years. We're trying to maintain the comprehensive nature of our district and the excellence that is Victor Central School District. Want to make sure we continue to improve the alignment of our resources with our vision and mission and strategic plan, and if it doesn't fit those major focus areas, then we don't want to spend the money on it. And then financially, we want to have a strategy where we maintain stabilization of our reserves, try to make sure we maximize every dollar that's spent, and find more and more ways to get aid back from our expenses through things like BOCES and those types of organizations, so that we can maximize every cent that we spend. And most importantly, we want to be transparent about it. Just want to give a really, really quick history of Victor, at least back to 2007. So you'll see this chart. That's a bar graph. The bar graph is state aid increases since 2007, and the line graph is the enrollment increases. And this shows what the challenge was for us as a school district. Really, way before 2007, we started to increase enrollment, and that enrollment increased significantly up through about 2013. and then actually a little bit farther, 2014 maybe. And then it's been stable since then. It's gone up some years, down a few years, but maintained this stability in the last probably 10 to 11 years. The challenge was that when the enrollment increased significantly, the state aid was relatively flat in terms of increases, which means there left a large gap, which is that gap between the blue bars and the yellow line, that caused a significant challenge for Victor Central School District to get the staffing that was appropriate for the large numbers of students that were increasing in the district. That created a district that in 2020 had the third lowest per pupil expenditure of any school district in New York State. Now, the good news is we started to finally get some state aid increases that started to match the enrollment in 2021 through 2024. And during that time, the school district added staff members to compensate for the lack of staffing since the early 2000s. And now that leads to, which leads to a more stabilized staff and a more appropriate ratios between staff and students. Now the challenge is, and what's not shown on this chart, is between 2024 and 2025, we received 0 increase in state aid. So the state went back to not giving us the increases that occurred in previous years as well. So now what our challenge is to try to find a way to maintain the staff that we hired in a financially prudent way that doesn't impact the taxpayer negatively, because we know there's that balance between the taxpayer needs and the school district needs. So this is just a little bit of a history of our enrollment in relation to our state aid, which leads to why we're not increasing any staffing for next year. We have increased staffing between 2021 and 2024. We're going to maintain that staffing next year, and we're going to try to figure out ways to offset areas that we have to increase staffing with efficiencies in other areas. So if sixth grade needs an additional teacher or special ed needs an additional teacher, we know that we have a drop in enrollment in second and third grade next year. Therefore, we take a section from there, or 2 sections from there, and we move them to the areas that we need it, whether it's special ed or sixth grade. By that, we maintain the consistency of the staffing, and we're not actually increasing it for next year. I'm going to turn it over to Christine, who's going to talk a little bit more about our expenditures.
Good evening. So overall, the budget next year is up 6.34%, or $6.5 million from the prior fiscal year. The most significant portion of the school district budget, obviously, is always in our staffing costs. So our professional salaries, support salaries, and fringe benefits make up about 76% of our budget. That is going up overall between the 3 categories. Those 3 lines is $3.3 million for 4.2% increase. Now, I know we're not increasing staff, as we talked in the previous slide. However, there are other costs that go along with staff, which is contractual obligations for the collective bargaining agreements, and also fringe benefits. Health insurance is going up, and the like. So that accounts for the increase there. Our BOCES aid is another big portion of that. One of the reasons that line, it's kind of like, I don't want to say it's an artificial increase. We'd been expending that money in the prior years. We just hadn't quite aligned our budget number on that, so we were correcting that. So basically, it helps make our BOCES aid the next year a little more predictable, so we can project that a little tighter. And that our BOCES expenditures, we do get BOCES aid back the next fiscal year. So as we shift more and more costs into that BOCES line, it's actually a revenue generating line. So we're always looking for opportunities. You know, when someone says we want to expend money on something, we always look for how can we pay for it. One of the first things we look at is there state aid associated for it? Is there a grant? Is there something else? And that's one of the things that we do with that BOCES line. Another area that is also aidable is our debt service line. That's our contractual obligations for our bond payments and band payments for prior capital projects. So that is also aided, and those payments are, so those aid payments in the building aid is kind of aligned with all those payments over the course of the bond. So we get like 78% aid on that. So, and also in there is, we do get transportation aid on our payment for our buses. And lastly, our contractual line's another one that's got a little bit of a big increase just because of increases really in our contract transportation. If anybody wants to be a bus driver part-time, the application's on our website. But we have about $520,000 increase in our contract transportation, having to outsource it to outside companies. Also, our utilities and our liability insurance was a big increase as well for us there. Despite that increase, as Dr. Terranova told you, it's one of the lowest cost per pupil expenditures in the area. When you compare us to our neighbors in Monroe County and Wayne County, and obviously our neighbors within Ontario County as well, we're about $7,000 below the other districts in Ontario County, or at least the average of Ontario County. On the revenue side of our budget, obviously, since this slide was created, the state has passed their budget. We do have final numbers on that. Based on the next slide you'll see, we had an increase in our foundation aid slightly, not a lot from what we projected. We did kind of hedge a little bit in our numbers, and we were pretty darn close on it, within $50,000, so I'm happy with that. But, you know, it's difficult to pass a budget when you don't have state aid numbers to know what's happening. So on our adopted revenues from the state, I'll focus on that real quick. That $40,433 is probably about, or $40,433 is probably about $40,488 for what we're actually going to be getting. So little over 2.67% increase in state aid. Property taxes, the property tax levy that we need to for our budget is going up 1.7 million, or 3.04, and that is tax cap compliant. That is at the cap. It's not exceeding the tax cap. Federal sources, if anybody asks, that's a small amount. It's not a lot. It's our Medicaid reimbursements for our students for the services that we provide, like OT and PT for students that have that. Other local sources isn't up very much, but one of the biggest things to really point out on here is the fact that we needed to appropriate fund balance this year. Not a long-term solution for us. We're going to be looking long and hard at our long-range financial plan over the next several months, working on advocacy a little earlier in our budget season this year in the fall to try and advocate for more things that are in the foundation aid formula and the recommendations that came out of the foundation aid study. So things like that to help increase aid for the districts. And that advocacy works. NYSBA was NYSBA is New York State School Boards Association. They really did a lot of advocacy and got some things implemented as far around increasing BOCES aid, factors for students with English language learners, giving a higher weight in the formulas for our aids for those students as well. So that advocacy is huge. So we'll be looking at a lot of opportunities for us in the fall to see if we can't reduce that use of fund balance and going into the future. So budget to budget, our budget's going up 6.34%, or 6.5 million. The levy to levies only going up 3.04%, or 1.7 million, with a rate to rate increase of 1.79. And I am actually going to turn this over to Dr. Terranova now, because, right? You're welcome.
Interesting note about this slide. So this is what makes Victor unique. So our budget to budget, even though we're not increasing staffing, is going up 6.34% because of the costs associated with the current staffing and our other non-personnel expenses. The levy is 3.04%, which is at the cap, but not exceeding it. And then the rate, the true tax rate, is going up 1.79%, and that's the worst case scenario. Every year previous to this that I know of, that rate has always been less of an increase. Normally, it's a actual decrease, which it can be shown in the next slide. But here's just an example of the value of the property in relation to the projected change in taxes for next year with the 1.79% increase. This is not including any STAR exemptions. And like I said, because the final assessment rolls are not established till June 30th, 2025, and then the rates are set at the August Board of Education meeting, typically those rates are less, as you can, actually, I'm going to skip this one and go to this one. Typically, the rates are less, as you can see the history of our tax rate between 2000 and 2025. That doesn't mean that everybody's paying less taxes every year, because as you know, that also has to do with the assessments on your house and also the equalization rates on your tax bill. Those play a role that we don't have anything to do with. All we can do is set the total budget, and then the rate is set from that. I will go back to this slide. It's a very similar slide to the one we showed before, which was per pupil expenditure. This is tax rate comparison. Victor compared to the average in the 3 surrounding counties, Ontario, Wayne, and Monroe. And even after we take into account that 1.79% increase for next year, and obviously we don't know what tax increases Ontario, Wayne, and Monroe County school districts will have, so we keep those the same, we're still, what I believe, is significantly less than the average in those other 3 counties. Sorry. I took 2 of your slides.
It's all right. We're winging it tonight. So the other item besides the budget that you'll see on the ballot is 6 large diesel buses and 2 small gasoline diesel buses for an estimated cost of about $1.5 million. We banned those buses. We do a bond anticipation note every year on that. Again, back on that other slide, we mentioned the debt service payments. We do get aid on this through the form of what they call transportation aid. So there's one of our expense-based aids. So you'll see that on the ballot. Additionally, there's 3 board candidates on the ballot as well this year. 3 incumbent board members, Lisa Kostecki, Timothy DeLucia, and Elizabeth Mitchell. And they are 3 seats open for 3-year terms.
Just say, for anybody watching who's not a registered voter, which means you've never registered to vote, because once you're registered, you should be fine. Tomorrow, between 3 o'clock and 7 p.m. at the district office, we do have voter registration. So anybody watching who wants to register to vote, maybe they just turned 18, maybe for whatever reason they haven't registered yet, that's a great opportunity to register, because a week from tomorrow is our vote from 6 a.m. to 9 p.m. in the Early Childhood Schools boardroom. And we have a ton of information on our website, which is why we have the address there. So we encourage people to go there, and certainly they can email me at terranovat@victorschools.org or Christine with any questions.
Well, thank you for offering the voter registration tomorrow. Very
Yes.
important. I do have a question. I guess it caught my eye is, so 6 large diesel buses.
Yes.
I thought there was an incentive or moving along for the electric buses.
Yes.
Is your existing fleet diesel or a mix of diesel gas?
Is it all diesel?
It's a mix. The large buses are diesel, the small buses are gasoline. One of the issues with switching are you going down the path of EV buses? There is a mandate that we're to start switching and stop purchasing in 2027. There was an extension as part of the budget that was just passed, giving districts waivers. We have to work with NYSERDA through that process to apply for those waivers in future years to help us with that. One of the issues is we've done and I've been with the district 3 months, so I haven't actually gone through the report yet, but we did have a study done by Polaris regarding infrastructure and our ability to be able to build out to accommodate electric buses on our campus and also in our community. For example, I believe there's several runs as part of that study that we can't complete with an electric bus, just because of the length of the time that they're out, the number of stops, on the distance that they have to go. So there'll be waivers probably coming up to delay that, but when we get to that point of buying those buses are about $450,000 a piece.
There'll be a lot of waivers on those EV buses, I think, in the future.
Yeah, so it's a 2-year, I think it's a two-year renewal that we can do for delaying them. Maybe I see a hybrid solution at some point in time. I think there is a place for some of them, but not necessarily a 100% flip. I just don't think in our region that you're going to find a lot of districts that can do it. The other issue is RG&E's at least here, RG&E in various areas of the state, different companies, but whether the infrastructure can manage that charging. As you know, we struggle to get bus drivers, and our bus runs are long. And, will you have time in the middle of the day to recharge these buses? These are all things to consider.
Has the district looked at what that RG&E upgrade would, I'm just thinking about, I believe Webster or Monroe County District looked at that and they ran into huge difficulties in the capital expense required to upgrade the infrastructure. Have we looked at, is it doable and what would it even cost to do that?
Yeah, we're working with all our districts around this, but the reality is, we don't have the infrastructure anywhere right now to support the buses that we would need to be completely electric. And we're concerned about paying for electric buses right now and paying roughly an extra $200,000 per bus. And then 3 years from now, not using them or being able to use them. And now we've just spent $600,000 worth of taxpayer money. And so we're going to wait until we have more information from those studies and when we have more information about the infrastructure necessary to be able to utilize those. We want to be environmentally friendly, but at this point, it would be, we believe, not prudent to spend that money.
Jim, I had a question on the equalization rate. I
Yes.
mean, for years, Victor and Farmington were very good at keeping it 100% assessment. So there wasn't really any change in the tax rate between the two towns when it came to school taxes. But now with the equalization rate, Victor is 79%, 78%. So the tax rate that's on there isn't what Victor residents will be paying.
No,
You're correct. You're correct.
yeah, that's the true tax rate.
Right.
And Christine can add.
No, I
if she
get
can.
it.
So the reality is that's if every place was 100% assessed.
Right. No, I
Now,
get
you're
it.
right. So Victor, for example, their rate is, I think 68% actually now.
67% now.
Which means that whatever your home's assessed at, the state tax on an extra, what,
I get it. I understand how it
32% to
works.
that
I just
bill.
wondered where you're
But you're
getting that
right, there's a pretty
blowback.
significant gap between Farmington, Farmington is much closer to 100% than Victor is right
Right.
now. And that changes the tax rates for depending on the different towns. But ultimately, I guess I would put a plug in, if you had a $400,000 home in the Victor Central School District, you'd pay less taxes than a $400,000 home in a Monroe County School District.
Oh, yeah.
Because their tax rates are higher in Monroe County than here. But you're right, it depends on the equalization rate and the assessed value of the home.
And their equalization rate could be worse.
It depends on the
Right?
town.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no. And it's interesting because as we have looked into this, I mean, there are some towns in Monroe County that are like 25% of full value assessment. It's not uncommon.
Yeah, so there's people out there, and again, it depends on the whole circumstance, but there's people out there who don't understand the equalization rate, and so they think they're paying taxes on their assessed value of their home at $300,000, but they're really paying much higher than that because their equalization rate's lower.
Right.
And then it depends on whether your homes around you, during a reassessment, it depends on the homes around you. If your home is reassessed at a higher percentage than the homes around you, then you're probably going to pay more taxes. If your home actually is reassessed at a smaller percentage than your homes around you, you might pay less taxes.
Right.
But the bottom line is, people are paying more taxes across the area. We're just trying to keep the rates as low as possible.
I was just wondering if the public gave you any blowback. I mean, we started to experience it a little bit with the county taxes when they were coming in, because people didn't understand. I think a lot of people don't understand what equalization rate is.
Yeah, I think we definitely get blowback.
Yeah.
I think people think sometimes, and I'll just put it out there, that when a town reassesses their homes, the Victor school district, or that the school district gets more money, and that's not true. The tax levy is just an entity of, what is it, about 40 million bucks for us? 60, sorry, that's the state aid. So we have $60 million in a levy. That's going to go up, 3.04%. We're not going to get more money
Right.
when homes are reassessed. It's just going to be divided up differently. And that's what I think is, people need to try to, we need to try to continue to talk to people about that, because that's confusing for a lot of people.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
Any other questions for school superintendent or for Christine?
Yeah, Well, thank you Supervisor for bringing up the EV buses, because I was going to say, I love that you're doing the diesel buses down, because you all know better than we do about, districts that have put up the EV buses and have failed on a referendum, so buying them now is, I think it's a great idea. I looked on the enrollment, I think it was the second slide, how in 2020, it looked like the enrollment dropped slightly, but then it didn't go back up.
I'm sorry, say that
Like,
again?
in 2020, it looks like there's a drop there in enrollment,
Yes.
and then it didn't really tick back up. Was there any sort of, do you know why? maybe?
Yeah, what's interesting about our enrollment is, we don't know why. We know that we're building homes, they're building homes, especially in Farmington. So the Victor Central School District is increasing in terms of households and homes being built. But we did an enrollment study roughly a year and a half ago. We brought in a consultant who studied everything. They studied the home building, they studied the birth rate, they studied obviously our past enrollment and trends, what they call the survival rate of cohorts from the time they're in kindergarten all the way through 12th grade. And they said over the next 5 to 10 years, they do not expect us to grow in enrollment. They expect it to continue to be stable, which is within a certain area. And one of the things is, it could be that birth rates are just continuing going down in homes. It could be that they do believe a lot of people are moving in Victor Farmington, but within the school district. And potentially, people who are leaving leaving homes that are going elsewhere might have had 4 or 5 kids, and now people moving in have 2 or 3 kids. And so, for whatever reason, though, we don't have a great understanding of it. We don't believe that the enrollment will increase, but there is a bit of a wild card because of the home increasing and the buildings that are occurring, especially in Farmington.
On the decrease, is there, because I know during the pandemic, a lot of people either changed schools or opted like a homeschool. Does that factor in there at all? Were students leaving?
In terms of the enrollment? No, not really. I think a lot of those people came back to our
did.
district. Yeah, from our understanding.
Okay.
So we don't think it's a COVID thing necessarily.
Okay.
We just think it's just a part of the whole community structure.
And I think if you saw a larger chart of this, and you'd see that the leveling out a little bit. This is a period of time from 27 through 2024. If you look at it going back into the 90s, you'll see that this is kind of close. If you look at over longer, it's a little more level at this point in time. I think Dr. Terranova always calls Victor an anomaly compared to other districts in the state. I came from 2 other districts that had massive declining enrollment, had 25-30% decrease in enrollment in the last 10 years. So comparatively to other districts across the state, we're staying level is the anomaly.
Wednesday or Thursday at our business luncheon, the head of economic development for the county said there's 2 counties in upstate New York that are growing, Ontario and Saratoga. Every other county is, it has been. I mean, they're
Yeah.
declining, people are leaving.
Yep. I think it's a combination of leaving New York State, but also I think it is, birth rates are down. Birth rates are down.
And then there was a section on tuition. What does that mean? That you like
Say that again?
expense? There was a section for tuition.
Let's just find that.
Let's go to the expense. So that tuition would be students, private school, not private, I apologize, private placements for our special ed students and
Okay.
other districts.
Okay.
So it would be like Mary Carriola,
Yep.
trying to think of some of the other homes, Gateway Longview, although that's Buffalo Way, I might be looking at outside the area, but those types of placements. So yeah, our special ed student, those tuitions are pretty high
Okay.
per student.
And then, I don't know if anyone else has gotten this question, but I got this from a lot of residents about a drag performance at the school recently. Is the board, or do you have anything to say about it? So I can tell people.
Say the question again?
I've gotten a lot of questions about a drag performance that was at the school from residents. I don't know if they've also reached out to the school, but
Yeah, so I can talk about this for a second. We definitely had some people reach out to us. We had a talent show that occurred on Friday evening. Actually, last Friday evening. That's a staff-student talent show that includes, it's a unique thing since COVID that where we had some staff members perform, staff and students perform together, music and playing instruments, and then certain staff members sometimes do a performance too. It's a put on by the student government and it raises money for families in need. So it's a great event. And then last Friday, we had performances. We had music groups, we had rock bands, kids, student rock bands, student guitarists. We had even comedians, we had magicians, and then the last act was a teacher who did dress up as a female singer because he was trying to doing a tribute for that, towards that female singer who's very popular in society right now, especially with the kids. He was also showing his support of students who can sometimes be marginalized, which are LGBTQ plus students. And it was done as a tribute in that sense. It was done to support kids and inclusivity for all kids. It was positively shown, it was positively felt by the crowd and the students in the audience. But certainly, you know, moving forward, we understand that there were other groups of people and students potentially who did not feel positive about that and thought it was more in a negative way, which it wasn't meant to be. So it's something that, you know, we continue to talk about moving forward. How do we figure out a way to balance to make sure that we are inclusive of all people, all kids, because we have all sorts of kids in the 4,300 kids in Victor Central School District. At the same time, we also need to honor and understand the perspective of all people and, you know, make decisions that way. So we continue to learn from it, and we actually, you know, I've obviously encountered some phone calls, probably 7 or 8 phone calls over the last 4 days, but I've had good conversations with parents about it, and I really appreciate the community and people who are not afraid to reach out with concerns and even disagreements and are able to talk about it. So that's something that's a positive about the community.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions? Thank you both. Good luck next Tuesday.
For having us.
You're welcome. Public comment. We'll start with YouTube. Okay. No one on YouTube. Anyone here in the public care to address the town board? Okay.
Hi again, Scott Riley, I'm here again. I'm here for the same reason. That is the speed on High Street, now commonly known as Victor Speedway, so you don't get confused with the Strong 500 further down the road. I met with the superintendent and gave him a list of ideas that I have that might work. And we had a good conversation and came to some agreements as to what would be done, or looked into anyway. And I guess I'm looking for some comment regarding those activities that were discussed.
Yeah, so board members, I provided some information, should have been in your mailbox. And it was a list of items that Mr. Riley provided me with. We had some conversation regarding this. And I have spoken to, I also provided you with some notes and the warrant that Labella would conduct on our behalf. 2 intersections for your consideration, Willowbrook and High Street, or Gillis and High Street. Both would cost about $5,000 for the warrant, and this would be for both the signal analysis, and if that didn't meet, and they would also be doing a 3-way stop analysis. The only thing we did get the feedback from the engineer is that based on the bridge work from the New York State Authority these days, that we would forego moving forward if it's the board's desire to do these analysis until the bridge constructions have been completed here in the town, because right now the data would be skewed based on the amount of traffic currently going down High Street. When that bridge closes, that remains to be seen, whether or not we'll see that. So right now, we're looking for, I'm looking for some feedback from you, whether or not you care to do a analysis for High Street, Willowbrook intersection, and the Gillis and High Street.
I'm all for it. I think the only question you're right on the timing there, but also making sure that school is in session, because I know a lot of the times the traffic, like, pattern change, not pattern, but volume changes when school's in session versus not, and they're in session most of the year,
Yeah, the
so,
four-way stop on High Street and Lane Road can be about 20 cars deep,
yeah.
you know, at certain times of the day.
Yes.
I definitely agree that right now is not the time to do that study, because I think you gotta wait till the bridge work's done. Because the next two bridges that are gonna be closed is gonna be High Street, and I don't know if it'll slow traffic down or not, but the High Street Bridge is gonna be closed for a couple of months, and then they're gonna do Brownsville. So they're gonna get these two bridges done, then they're gonna close Brownsville, and they're gonna close High Street. But I definitely think that, you know, anything that we look into for safety, certainly, there's a couple of things on there that I don't think are prudent. I mean, I don't think we'll get sidewalks from the mall to school, but, you know, I certainly, I could see a three-way stop on Gillis and High Street. I mean, ways to get them to slow down a little bit there. But I have been happy with the increase of enforcement with, you know, the police officers. I've seen state police and county sheriffs parking back in there in Willowbrook, hiding back in there and trying to pick them up. And I see our citations that you give us, we're getting some tickets out of it. I do think the flashing signs work to make people aware, but I think as far as recording, and I don't know about recording the data, because I know that Rochester had to take down all their automatic tickets. They were putting tickets on the light poles and cameras, and they were issuing tickets, and they got sued, basically, and had to take all those down.
Well, I think they're back up now.
Yeah,
I do believe they're back up.
yeah.
And
Can we
one-
collect that data without issuing tickets? That's two.
So the permanent signs that are up there only collect a minimal amount of information. They're not allowed to issue tickets or anything like that.
What do they collect, Mark? Like if you check one?
It's the day, that vehicle counts, how many were through there that day, average speeds. They'll give you 5, 10, 15 over, a time frame of when the most volume was the speeding was the highest. It's very vague information that we can get off of those, so.
Does it come to you via email?
No, you have to actually physically go out to each of these signs, and it's a Bluetooth option that you can have to collect this data off of those. If
Oh,
it's not-
I would love to see that data. I mean, I don't expect Jack to take my word for it that people are going by at 70 miles an hour, but I think the machines can tell us that.
Yeah, I guess to tell us what the average speed is, that's kind of, might be helpful, but I don't know if it would put, because of the speeding, because of the traffic, I don't want to put people at risk of getting injured or an accident if they have to be physically out there. So like, there's a Bluetooth option, do we have to just flip it on, and then you could drive past, like a water meter situation?
I'm not
or-
sure. I was talking to Kevin, one of my sign guys earlier today, and he mentioned the Bluetooth option is the way that we can collect this data. You would have to physically go out to the sign.
So you haven't collected any data yet?
Not off these, no, we have not. We started to do it on the portable ones that we've moved around, but, I mean, it's very minimal information there as well, so. It gives you an average speed, it gives you, the peak time when the speeds are the highest and stuff like that, but there's not a lot of information that you get off of them.
That seems to me to be extremely valuable information that we could use right now. And it shouldn't cost us anything, I wouldn't think. Signs are already there.
Yeah, and I figured if we have those signs too, like when we've asked for speed reductions for certain roads, that might be good information to give, just in future thinking on other roads or this road, et cetera, to state DOT if we had that. But,
From my experience, though, those speed reductions don't come as a result of lowering the average so that you make the 10 above the speed that you want to achieve. They set speeds, and basically what they come back and they say is, if people drove the posted speed limit, that would be the appropriate speed for that
Right.
road.
I was gonna ask Karen, when's the last time we had, asked for a reduced speed and got it approved? Yeah,
And actually, think about it, the school district, in a school zone, we created a school zone and they only went down 5 miles an hour.
yeah, they tried to reduce it down to 30
40,
or something.
40 during school hours,
Yeah.
yes.
My gripe is not with the speed limit. I think the speed limit's correct, 40 miles an hour. I think that's appropriate. But nobody goes 40 miles an hour.
I do. I see.
No, and I do too.
I know.
I have a vested
And the
interest.
people are right up behind you, right?
Yep.
The hard part is, Mr. Riley, and of anybody sitting up here, I might be amongst the most interested in safety, based on my line of work outside of here. The hard part is, Gillis Road and County Road 9 is, in my opinion, a very hazardous intersection.
Oh, yeah.
Extremely hazardous. And, I've met with the supervisor over the last few years trying to make an effect to that intersection. And, I learned a lot about what goes into implementing different type of control devices to increase the safety factor. And kind of what I gathered from those conversations is the vehicle speeds aren't necessarily a great indicator of them implementing traffic control devices. They have to meet very specific parameters, and I was actually very surprised to learn about how specific the parameters must be in order to put a three-way stop, to put up a traffic signal, to put up a blinking light.
Right.
And achieving those, I agree with you. I work at the fire station on High Street.
Okay.
My office watches the traffic. Two times a week for 24 hours, I watch traffic go by there. People have a hard time adhering to that speed limit. I agree. The problem is implementing, in my personal opinion, implementing a traffic control device there, it's not whether it would have an impact. I don't think that we're ever going to meet the thresholds for the DOT to approve that and install that.
Correct, and that's the one thing that is frustrating, because the village can do whatever they want, right? I mean, the village is 25, they don't have to go through the DOT, they're able, with their trustees, to make that decision. We can't, right? We can't, we have to go through the DOT to get that and to get it changed. I mean, and then, of course, if you talk major thoroughfares, which are, state, like 96, I mean, we're almost out of the equation completely. They're gonna do what they want and maybe do it twice.
Yeah, and Mr. Riley, while I don't know the detailed equations that they use, there's equations that the state uses as a standard measure to, identify property damage crashes versus injury crashes versus fatality crashes. And, then there's these complex equations that they use to identify areas and thresholds and when they exceed those thresholds. And while there are crashes that occur on High Street, if I were to speculate, I would say they don't occur with the regularity that they do at places like Gillis and County Road 9 or at certain areas of Route 96. And I'm not saying that I wouldn't like to see that road be safer. I just have a hard time from this board position saying that what we do will have a positive impact in implementing new control changes to High Street. And I'm not saying that I don't want to see that. I'm just saying I don't think that that's a realistic expectation that we're gonna see that, just based on my experience having worked on projects in other areas of the town.
So stop signs have to be DOT approved?
Yep.
Yeah?
So the town can't say, and this is surprising to me, the town can't say, we want the speed to be this. We have no control over that, but we also have zero control over implementing lights and stop signs. That's all the DOT.
Well, it seems like the data from the warrants,
If
Or
if
neither.
that comes in a positive, then that would then it's a go-ahead.
Okay.
Because the DOT will be involved with this as well.
And I think the data from the flashers, that the warrant, the people who are doing the warrants would want to look at that data too, I would think.
Yeah.
It's available.
Because I think under the warrant, it listed foiling items as well. Or maybe I thought I read of that. I might be misspeaking then. I am curious about the city of Rochester with the cameras again, just because speaking to our district attorney and our sheriff, the problem lies with the data collection. It comes down to now when they get into court and they have a ticket issued in the registered vehicle that this gentleman owns, and he comes and he says, I wasn't driving this car. Well, my kid had it or whatever. So that's, I think that was an issue that was raised by our district attorney and our sheriff. So I am interested in what the city's doing right now and try to get that more information for this board and yourself as well.
All I'm asking is that you look at it, because somebody's going to get killed on that stretch.
Yep. I think what I heard is move forward with the 2 warrants when those bridge construction season ends, and we'll see what those warrants resemble, and we'll present them at some future board meeting, probably early fall, I would presume.
When's High Street going to be done? Do you
High
know?
Street, my understanding, won't be started until maybe the second week of June.
And it's going to take
And
2
Willowbrook,
months probably.
yeah,
And what's the other road? The other?
Brownsville,
Oh, Brownsville.
yeah, the Brownsville Bridge.
yeah,
Forgot
so,
about that.
so,
Okay,
okay,
well, thank you.
well, thank you.
I'll keep coming. I'll keep tickling.
Please do. I used to live on High Street myself, so I know it's bad.
Yep, that's bad. As far as law enforcement, I haven't seen any increase in sheriffs. I have seen an increase in troopers.
I did email
They have been there.
that sergeant you and I spoke of. Actually, that's a good point. Remember I told you, I think he got elevated to a
Oh.
lieutenant, and he hasn't responded to my email, now that I think about it, so.
Lieutenant Beaver.
It's correct, good memory.
No, I got notes. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Welcome. Okay, in your town board packet, you had reports of the Planning and Building Department and the Finance Report. Questions on either of those reports? Okay, I have a few things I'd like to just... Victor Central School, I mentioned this previously, had requested a mirror by the High Street Bridge coming from Aldridge. Highway Superintendent ordered one. It was installed last Monday, and I know, excuse me, the Victor Central School leadership is very grateful to Mark and his team for the quick response. A few upcoming events starting this Wednesday. We have the Rotary Club Law Enforcement Awards recognition. Law Date is Friday on the 16th. Victor Central School Second Annual Connection Breakfast on May the 21st. Victor Job Fair here in this room, May the 22nd. And Victor Fire District Memorial Day Breakfast from 7 to 9 on Memorial Day, followed by the parade, which will be starting at 10 a.m. I want to thank the board members that were able to attend the 19th Annual Business Awards Luncheon last Thursday. It was certainly a big success. The New York State budget, which has been passed, my understanding, they put in an additional $50 million in CHIPS funding for highway departments across the state. It also appears as if the even year election law is back on based on action from the Appellate Division, 4th Department, overturning a lower court's decision that it was unconstitutional. That's all I had. Board members, you have anything you care to report on?
I had a good meeting, great meeting with the new committee formed out of Parks and Rec for the new Dryer Road playground. And as Councilman Condon here caught me looking at some of the magazines for stuff in the playground. So if anyone has any questions, any comments, concerns, things you want to see, we're currently coming up with a list of things we must have, we should have, we want to have at the new playground. And then we'll be reconvening together as a committee. The other thing, Supervisor brought up Memorial Day Parade, but I wasn't sure if everybody saw my email. If we're all going, if we want to hand out flags again as a town board together, if we have the banner, and I know Councilman Condon's grandkids were there before to hold it, if they're still coming, just to figure that out. And I think that's it.
I haven't gotten confirmation on whether the grandkids are going to march with their team or carry the banner, so I'll get an answer for you on that soon. And yeah, I'll kick in for the flags too, that's a good idea.
Okay.
Okay. I'm definitely participating. Hopefully we get a couple banner holders. If not,
We might have to huff it ourselves. The banner. No, I'm just, we will find people.
you with us?
I'm with you.
Councilman,
I'll be in the parade, but I gotta have a different hat on.
a different hat?
I've been with the town every year since I've been here, but this is my year to work.
Driving the truck?
I'll be in a truck.
All right, good for you.
Oh, yeah, big time.
Okay. Moving to the resolutions then. And the resolution one is actually an amendment to a resolution acted on at our last board meeting.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Number two is the appointment of Joseph Giorgio to full-time code enforcement officer.
Moved.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. As long as the village isn't mad at me for that one.
Number three, appointment of Patrick Coates to the zoning board of appeals.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Number four is the resignation of Adam Hanel from the alternate zoning board of appeals.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Number five is setting the public hearing to amend the fee schedule on the one-time charges for new connections to the consolidated sewer district. This would be held at 7 PM on the 27th of May.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Number six, Highline Park Phase 1, letter of credit release number 3.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Number seven is the letter of credit for the Meadowview, and this would be release number 3.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Back to public comments, an opportunity for members of the public care to address the town board. There's no one on YouTube, no one here. This time I need a motion to go into executive session for, under rule number 3, personnel matters. I need the town board, town attorney, and the director of the building and planning department.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.